good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Sandra
Good
Volks.
morning.
I'm Coach Sandra, Compassionate Queen of Straight Talk from Canada. But today I'm thrilled to have with me Margaret Rose, who lives down the road from me, so also Canada, and Ronald Bachakwa from Uganda. And our discussion today is just to talk about the experience of opening communities. How on earth do we start changing how we are in this world, even in our own communities here in Canada? My old community I grew up in, for instance, was maybe about 40 families out in the country on the farms. And we all knew each other. In fact, many of our daddies went to the same school I went to. And those daddies grew up together and had their families and had their family farms there. So this was a long-term community. But out of that community, I have my vision of community. And it's a struggle to awaken new communities, even as I would move around. But once you get the idea, no matter where you land, you can build community. You can build that connection. Margaret, can you tell us about how community has been important for you in your personal life?
Community in my personal life depends on where you're living as well. I used to live in the country. I lived with a man. I lived upstairs and he lived downstairs. He lost his job because his boss died. And I moved into the upstairs so to give him an income. So the rent I paid him allowed him to live because he couldn't get a job because of his back. And we sort of bartered back and forth. I paid for the hydro. He fixed my car. It's just a matter of being one with each other. And it comes a time that you have to realize that the community is there and they will help you if you ask them. It's just like anything else, God won't help you unless you ask. Your angels and your guardians are sitting there and saying, oh, I like it, she's all right. But meanwhile, I'm frantic, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for that? Well, if you ask, a way will be shown. So, you get to be one with the community. It's like Sandra was saying about, I call him Tawny. His name is Contendi Tawny. And he has an orphanage called Remembering Mothers Children's Center. And when I first started with him, he was just, he was a young man and he just had a few children. And he started gathering the children that were on the street and bringing them home with him. And he had a house where he had, I think he paid $100 a month for it. And even that was a lot for an orphanage. So to even get people to donate towards him and his children, it was just like pulling hen's teeth. And when Sandra, it's the truth, when Sandra went to Uganda, and I asked her to go and see Tawny if she had some time. And she said, I will do my best to go there. And I was so thankful because before this, people would say, how do we know he's real? How do we know these children are his, that he's looking after? How do we know that? Well, and people would come on there and say this right on the internet. Once you say something on the internet, it stays there. You can't just rub it out with an eraser. So I thank Sandra every day for going to see Tawny. And people see it now. And he has went from renting this old house that had no ceiling in it, curtains for doors. The mosquitoes would come in and eat them at night. And during this time, I had started buying mosquito nets and mattresses. And I taught them how to make a mattress out of a bag with grass in it, so they didn't have to sleep on a dirt floor. And after Sandra went there, just the donations opened up and people started believing.
Wow.
When I told her she's the angel that went there and supplied the truth so the orphanage could grow. Now he has a house and a well and his property. And this has all been bought by donations. And it's just wonderful. And he has 66 children that he looks after. And he has volunteers that come in and they get a meal a day. They don't get paid, they just get a meal a day. It's such a wonderful story. I just amazed. Anyways, I think
You did your 5 minutes.
thank you, Sandra.
Well done.
Margaret. I'm going to go to Ronald in 2 seconds. But what I want to say is that Ronald and everyone else who has the heart for building community cannot miss the joy it brings to you to be able to help, but only after we're able to know that we can trust and that the communication is open. Nobody, whether you're broke in Africa or broke in Canada, doesn't matter. Nobody wants to be used. Everybody wants the joy of working together. And that, we already heard it in Margaret's voice. What a joy, not only with Tony and the children, it just grows. So you get goosebumps when I see that somebody is making a change in their life simply by being in community with me, being in community with Margaret, being in community with Ronald. When I see that, that's what makes the difference. Now the money doesn't matter. We still have to be boundaries and cautious and all that good stuff, but the money becomes less and the joy becomes it all. Now, Ronald, let's go with you. You can tell your story because it's a wonderful story. Ronald the Chakwa from Uganda, my star.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and thank you so much, Margaret, for such a beautiful story. Actually, you've just given me more reasons to be who I am and who I pledge to be. It's such a fulfilling story, We spend most of our time trying to be rich, but you see, even rich people are not resting. But I think the absolute joy comes when you see a smile on another face just because of your kindness and generosity. That, to me, means everything. Today, we are talking about building communities. And briefly about me, I want to say that I grew up with very few friends, not because I was a bad person, but simply because of the environment that I was in and the family that I was born in. We were very, very poor. Like, we were these children who were charity cases. And even at school, most children didn't want to share with me because in most cases I had trousers which had holes, these punches. These days they call them damage. And everyone could just laugh at me. And making friends became very hard. But again, it taught me something, to value the few who accepted to believe in me. And right now, as I speak, my friends are my friends. And I will do everything to be real, because I know the life of being there without a community around, without people who truly believe in you, it's very dangerous. I think that's the biggest challenge that can happen in anyone's life. We can't live independently. But again, we can't live together if there is no trust. So to what Sandra did, it opened up the hearts of so many people who were willing to donate, but they were not sure where to put their money. The example I always use, when I heard Sandra speak, I realized she's a resource to what I do and to my community. And that's why I sent her a message. So my intention was purely to get the experience, because she was talking of Uganda, and I was like, hey, this is my country. And ever since I met her, I got a lot of clarity in everything that I do. I've started building my team consciously, because there has to be also wisdom in trying to see who you are bringing on board. Who is in your community defines what you do. If your team is full of negative people, then everything that you'll be doing will not succeed. And I've since valued my intentions. I've known that when you meet people, if you're trying to build a community, have pure intentions, make your intentions very clear, and let you build that community, that trust on a solid basis. And that community will prosper, that community will grow. And the reason as to why Margaret is still sponsoring these children, it's because there has been an established solid ground of trust. And today, if Tony sent you a message, even at night, and like, hey, Margaret, I have this problem and this, you will believe, because you've already known. And the biggest challenge that we get as these charity founders or these orphanage founders is that building community, especially if you're trying to attract people from all over, it's very difficult because of our differences, because of our history, because many people, especially people from Canada, UK, USA, have been scammed. Mm-hmm. And this is what they usually tell me when I find a new person. They're like, hey, are you from Nigeria? And I'm like, I didn't know what they meant at first, but I had like, now I asked myself, why do you think I'm from Nigeria? He said, hey, you're from Africa, you could be from Nigeria, you're scammers.
Yeah.
And that to me,
Carry on.
They've already targeted Nigerians to be number one scammers. And why? It could be just maybe one person who scammed another person, then this person didn't keep quiet and made it
loud. A lot of them. It's a big business there.
And to my surprise is that most people, especially our friends in the diaspora, the whites, most of them think that Africa is just a country.
Yes.
They don't know that Africa is a continent. So when you say, I'm Ronald, I'm from Africa, if you say I'm from Uganda, they're like, oh, where is Uganda? Is it a village? You're like, no, it's a country. Where? Which continent? I'm like, Africa, but Africa is a country. So we have such challenges of winning trust. Mm-hmm. And how do we win trust? Is by not judging, because someone will come, you'll send a message to someone, then someone will say, hey, another scammer, I don't trust you. And you're like, no, it's all right, but I just need a chance. Don't mind about the money, but I just want you to get to know me. And if you feel it's something you'd consider, you can help. So most of them are like, we need a video call, because no scammer will accept a video call in this world of technology. That's the number one point where you can give them. If you say, okay, you're saying you love me, you want a sugar mommy, it's okay. Let's get on the video. They're not sure. They will say, I'm in a bar, I'm driving, those excuses. So I embrace so much video calls. I showcase what we do. And that's how I've made myself clear to them, and they have loved me.
Now, can you tell us a little bit as well, Ronald, because I don't know that Margaret has heard too much. I mean, I've talked a little bit, but when you and I get together on a meeting with Andy and Saganet and so on, and you have now brought the grandmothers, why on earth did you bring grannies to a meeting when you're supposed to feed those poor old ladies that can't feed themselves? They're expected to look after 12 grandchildren, but they can't earn anything and they can't speak for themselves. How did all that happen?
Thank you for reminding me that part. That's an interesting story. And to you, Margaret, and everyone who will listen to this clip, I want to say that we have already introduced another new program called Youth Granny Integration. And this program, I wanted to call it Sandy Granny Integration, but we are still debating because she championed this. We have since realized that we cannot talk about children of Africa or Ugandan children without talking about grandmothers. And some of these grandmothers are not the usual grandmothers we know. Some of them become grandmothers at the age of 30. Why? Because they got married at an early age, most of them at 14. So someone by 28 has got already a kid. By 30, the kid has also got a kid. And they're in a situation where they can't do anything. When you find those ones who are above 60 years, if you get 5 grandmothers, the least will have 5 grandchildren that they are supporting. And they can't express their challenges. They can't express because there is no platform that they can use. And that was before. So when I met Sandra told me that, hey, it would be, when I talked about that scenario of the children and the grandmothers, I was like, what's going on? What's behind this? So we realized that we're having a community where grandmothers are not respected, are not protected, are not given a platform to express what they have. And right now, as we speak, grandmothers have become game changers. They now have a platform to express what they need, to express their experiences they share with the children. Because we had a community where with the youth, we think that grandmothers or old people have nothing to tell us. Why? Because we assume they are old, so they are outdated. And this is a psychological problem. And also some grandmothers think that, hey, these youth have nothing to present. Why? They are children. So this kind of disconnection brings silent but powerful and dangerous conflict within the community. You will never have a united community where each group thinks that the other group is inferior. They can't do anything. And guess what is happening? Grandmothers are sharing their experiences. They are, every time, actually these days, every time we have meetings, we have over 10 grandmothers on board to discuss the matters of our community. Grandmothers have become now productive. The only thing that is remaining is just to ignite their potential, because we need also to create certain opportunities for them to maximize their abilities. And this is something I will again recommend that I'm going to do it basically by the end of this new month. We must change that program to Sandy Granny. That's just my request, because this is something that I can do personally with my team to recognize you and your input. And I can talk about this for the whole time, but just know grandmothers are very happy. We are very happy as Rondiri Foundation. And to you, Margaret, you're amazing for what you're doing. And may God bless you wherever you are. You have created a legacy that will never be erased. For instance, those children that you're sponsoring, they will never forget someone called Margaret, because I see it. When someone comes up to say, oh, I want to sponsor Ronald, every day we must tell this child that you are because someone has accepted you to be. Pray for them. Be kind to others when you grow up, because your future is being redesigned purely by love, unconditional love, generosity beyond measure, love beyond borders.
Wow, that's a beautiful phrase right there. Love beyond the borders. You know, we've got that's something you might want to bring in and incorporate, Ronald, because we already have Doctors Without Borders, we have Engineers Without Borders. You have got Love Without Borders. I think that's something you could enlarge on. And I'm also thinking that it's time now. And I think you had put together actually a quite lovely proposal when you were talking about the 11 acres of land. You might want to just tidy that up a little bit and think in terms of putting a proposal now towards Stephen Lewis Foundation. They don't have a form, they don't have an application. It's to tell your story. How are you already producing? What is happening? In other words, the story of going beyond collecting these children and changing the words. No, they are not orphans. I refuse to call them orphans. These are children that I love. And then how you were struggling because you had the idea that all of your team members, you had these 10, 12 team members, and you were getting tired out because you thought you guys were the only ones could do all the work. And oh, poor us. And look, we just have to look after everybody. That is a beautiful segue to understand that you got your comeuppance. No, you're not God, you're leaders. And to be a leader, you go out and build more leaders, and you go out and find more leaders. And that's what happened when I didn't come up with the grandmother idea. That started with Stephen Lewis, recognizing the grandmothers were raising the children and they had no voice. Now, out of my 15 years, I've been with the Grannies for Africa, I've learned, but I would not have known if I hadn't had my feet on the ground. I think having visited and lived there, even for that short time, to really get real. I mean, I just stayed in Liz's home, and I was at the municipal offices. I was at the little local church. I was in the little local stores. I didn't stay in any hotel and get looked after. I got loved right at home. And then Liz brought in community people that, oh, they see a white woman there, there's got to be some money. And she said, we'll have to feed them. I said, why? They're coming for a meeting. No, that doesn't work this way. They won't come if they're not going to get fed. And then I said, then we don't need them. We don't need them. If they're just coming because I'm here for a couple of weeks and I'm going to feed them a meal, I don't need them. If they want to come and learn something, that's okay. So we did get the bottles of water. And I think I've shared about the bottle of water, how little Rafa then went, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll just go and get one of those bottles of water. And I, stop it. Don't you open that. Don't you open that. And then we had the lesson around the bottle of water because we did a whole math lesson. How much was that bottle of water? Well, it was 1,000 shillings. How big is that? Well, it's whatever it was, 500 mils. How big is the one in the kitchen that's got great big one from the factory? Well, I don't know how much that, how much does it cost? Well, mommy and daddy, how much? 7,000 shillings. I can get this great big bottle of water for 7,000 shillings, or I could get 7 bottles of water for 1,000 shillings each. Okay, so then he had to do the math and figure out how many bottles of water can we get out of that big bottle of water. Well, after we labored through that a little bit, because I was surprised his math wasn't that great, which brings me back to homeschooling. I think I can do a much better job with a teacher teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, and let the grannies in the community build up how to make the soil work. Anyhow, it turns out that there was 40 bottles in the big jug. So I could pay 40,000 shillings for 40 bottles of water, or I could pay 7,000 shillings for 40 bottles of water. Oh, okay. Now we can start making budget choices. What could we do? Okay, so instead of 40,000, we do 7,000. They could fill up their bottles. You know, it's not that they can't have water. Go fill them up in the $7,000 one. Open it up. What could we do? How much did we save? Let me see. 40 minus 7, 33,000 shillings just on water. Okay. What could we do with that? Well, let me see. They said we could pay the electric. How much is the electric? Well, that's about 16,000 a month. 16,000 a month? Yeah, so shillings. You mean the water can be paying the electric and we still have money left over? We still have another 12,000 shillings left over. What can you buy for 12,000 shillings? Well, of course, you can buy flour and make bread. You can, you know. So that whole exercise multiplied out to young Rafa has now said, we don't need sliced bread. That costs a lot of money. I can make chapatis. So he can make a whole lot more chapatis. And he can sell them because he can put salt on some of them, a little bit of sugar sprinkle on some others, and sell them. So they have a catering business. They created their businesses. And therefore we can do for ourselves, and so can you. So Ronald, blessings on you because you are willing to open up a community. And as you open up a community, you teach others how to do that. And pretty soon you'll be having another leader who's like you that will be able to duplicate and get opening up the next community. Right? That's the goal. But I will ask you to start thinking in terms of putting your whole proposal together, and let's send it off to Stephen Lewis. You send it off, but you get it, and then I can write a letter to go with it. So you can attach it, and we'll see what happens. Maybe they say, sorry, can't do anything right now, but you've got their resources. You can ask. Final words, because this has been amazing. This has been amazing.
Thank
Margaret,
you.
what are your final words for today's discussion that's happened here?
My final words for today is, I know you've mentioned this to me before, and I've been thinking about it, about the grannies, and I've been thinking about Tawny, and maybe each month, on a day that the children are not in school, is to invite some of the grannies of the area to come to the orphanage and visit the children. It'll be a start. So what do you think about that idea?
Ronald, what do you think about that idea? It's absolutely an excellent idea.
Thank you.
It can't be challenged or discussed, rather to be implemented. Yes.
So that's what I'm going to talk to Tawny about, to collect some names of all the grannies, not everybody, because everybody in the community wants to come, you know, but just the grannies to come and visit the children. And the children, you know, might pick one of those grannies as a special person to look forward to seeing her the next time she comes. And once one group of grannies come, another group of grannies will join.
And you want those grannies, tell Tony that you want ones where he sees that their leaders are in there, because they will come and tell stories about what it was like when they grew up, or stories about what has happened. And so you want the grannies that are internal leaders. They just didn't think they were leaders. They didn't know it, but ones to come and tell the stories and share stories with the children.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
Absolutely. And this is what we also do with the grannies. We have gone ahead like to have leaders just within them. Like the grannies also have their own leadership. Like we have the chairperson of them, and someone who just, because they understand each other more than we the youth understand them. So you also need a micro leadership that will keep these grannies together, motivated, and each time you want them to come, they'll be there on time. And the experience that they get when they come, it forces them to even ask for more appointments. Because when they come, now the children value them because of what they are able to hear from them. And once the children are valuing that, these grandmothers are very excited because that makes them feel young, feel loved, and embraced. That's what we all need. When you're speaking and someone is listening, nodding in approval, smiling, it gives you energy even to talk past the time, right? Exactly. You feel like, hey, I'm hitting it. So the grandmothers of Africa, of Uganda particularly, let me stick on Palisa district, they've gone ahead on top of assuming the responsibilities of their grandchildren. They're also counselors to these children. And this is a very big thing. This is a very big idea that you don't want a child to miss, because they are counselors. Because these are people, by the time someone survives for over 50 years, believe me or not, even if that person is poor, in their poverty, they have skills that they have used to survive.
Bingo.
80%.
Well, these children don't see anybody. These children
And I saw that,
so this is important. It's
yes,
important
and I
to connect.
Exactly. And I usually tell them that these grandmothers you see, they have pre-tested solutions to some of the problems that we are yet to encounter, or even the problems that we are facing right now. And they will tell you that, hey, I one time I encountered such a problem. I used to walk at night and I met police, they grabbed me, they thought I'm a thief. So never walk at night because you will have no witness. Everyone is sleeping. Why are you walking at night? So what the police reports at the police station will be confirmed. You don't have any witness. So walking at night is dangerous because they messed up. Even if they messed up, they will tell you that funny solution, and you will not do it. And I've come since to appreciate that in this world, there is no good person or bad person. Because even a bad person can be used as a good example. For instance, if you have your child who is starting to pick stuff without asking for permission, stealing people's stuff, you'll be like, hey, don't do that. You remember Bichekwa? Bichekwa stole someone's bicycle and he was killed. He was imprisoned. So you've used the Bichekwa, who is a bad example, to save your child.
Yes, yeah.
And that gives me an option to give people time, not to judge, embrace everyone. And that's why when we brought the grannies on the table, things are moving on smoothly. We only need some simple opportunities, but ideas are already there. And we are implementing some of them because most of them don't need the money. No. You don't need money to ask a granny to come and talk to your children. Really, do you need money? No. So prioritizing our activities has also given us a competitive advantage. And this progress, I don't have a lot of money. We don't get a lot of donations, no. but we prioritize what needs money and at which cost. Can we get an alternative? Do we need money to ask a motivational speaker to come and speak to our children? Okay, if yes, can't we get someone, a granny who has experienced such kind of situation, to come and talk to these children for free? Then we shall just provide food. And that's what we do.
And you've learned, that having food makes such a difference. I grew up in the community. You know what, even as a family, we come together over food. Food is what brings people together. And while we're eating and having that food, because that's the common thing, we can be hoity-toity and we can be better than, we can be richer than, we can be whatever, but we all need to put food in this hole here, and we all need a bathroom, and we're all the same. And food allows for that time for us to just get real in a common fashion. And food will always open the conversation for more, because it's a social time. You're going to eat. That's why even potluck, even if the grandmothers that have a little bit of the extra beans, everybody brings some beans and puts them in the pot together, they'll go around further. Or everybody will have a little bit less together, but they'll be together. So I'm going to think about winding up this session. It has been amazing. I am really thrilled because this can be in our travel, our Uganda, our human development area of the platform. And we're going to make things happen. We're here for you, Ronald, and Margaret's there for Tunny, and I've got Liz and Ronald and Tunny, and I'm networking people together in Africa, for frig's sake. And I was there for 5 weeks, as it turns out.
Maybe to tell Margaret about this, Margaret, we also need you. There is another Ronald here who is the brother to Tony, so we are all your children.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, let's do the love thing.
I like you.
No, you have to. It has to be the heart.
Yes,
I guess. Mine don't fit together too well. Blessings, everyone. We'll see you next Friday.
Next Friday.
Take care. May God keep you. Thank you, everyone. I love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.